So we've come together to do another podcast today. Welcoming today Hugh Newton. Hi Hugh. So I met Hugh about 12 and 11 years ago through the Mankind Project. I instantly warmed to Hugh. He's in my judgment, a lovely guy. I really connected well with him. And we've become friends since and staffed many Mankind Project weekends together since then. So I reached out to Hugh to talk about podcasts, and I know that it's a big passion of yours to work with Sovereign. It's also a passion of mine. In the archetypes, I judge it's the balancer of all the archetypes, and I judge there's so much golden value in exploring the archetype of the Sovereign. So welcome, Hugh.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Ashley. Great to be here.
Yeah. So what is it for you that draws you to work in the Sovereign Quarter?
Well, as you mentioned, we both met in MKP, and MKP works very strongly with the warrior. And I guess you're very familiar with the hero's journey, which is very well known and out there in the world. And my work in Sovereign has led me to realize recently that there's a further journey after the hero's journey, and that journey is the Sovereign's journey, I've called it.
Yeah.
And this is taking the best that the warrior has managed to create in his hero's journey, maybe his skills or certain things he's learned about himself, and then pursuing a much more inward journey, much less worldly, much more going into our individual psyche. And the first stage of the Sovereign's journey is really to get to know ourselves inside out. How we are in our lover, warrior, magician, and our king. And then the next job of our Sovereign is to turn to the many parts of us and heal, mature, bring love to, include boundary if they're unhealthy parts and accentuate if they're healthy parts, and bring about inner healing and heal the parts of us which are that are distressed and wounded, the parts of us that are really struggling, and also to heal the parts of us that are perhaps out of order, and bring them into alignment with the whole kingdom and with the king's choice. And so bring healing across our whole system so that love and joy can emanate out of us, and the parts of us that need healthy attention can receive it from their king. Yeah. So it's a really solid inner journey that takes place for most men after midlife. So we can sort through our conditioning and how we've been made up and bring ourselves to our own choice of being rather than our inherited choice of being.
Yeah.
That's a little crazy little summary.
To just pick up on something that you said there, I have a belief, and I'm wondering if you share it, that if any of the other archetypes are imbalanced, then the Sovereign can't be imbalanced.
The whole system can't be imbalanced. Yeah. Really, the whole system can't be imbalanced. So the way I work is the Sovereign will come, for instance, if we use lover as a example, our Sovereign will do a process with his healthy lover to strengthen that and give that part permission to lead our lover quarter. And then he'll also go to our too much lover. I call it our wild lover, the part of us that's a bit has tendency towards addiction, overdoing it, partying, non-stop in kind of quite wild and crazy, chaotic lover. And our king will come into relationship with that part and seek out why that part is so wounded, and look to bring that part into healthy balance and also regulate that part. And then the same with the under lover, perhaps our lonely lover who is isolated and alone and lonely, and really struggles to get into connection and contact with other people. And again, our king will attend to the wounds in that part, and hopefully take care of our too little lover in a way that settles him down and means that he doesn't have to keep on popping up and bringing his unhappiness into the system. So the king seeks to hold and regulate the two unhealthy parts and accentuate the healthy part. And really, our unhealthy and wounded parts will block our joy. So the king can't live in proper emanation if he hasn't attended to our wounded parts.
Yeah. And I guess could you talk about the wounded, like inflation deflation in warrior and magician in the same way?
Yeah. So for instance, if our king wants to get in touch with the three aspects of our warrior, the one healthy and two wounded, then if he wants to attend to the too little warrior, he'll be getting in touch with a part of us that can't get out of bed, has little self-belief, can't sustain his career in a way that brings in decent amounts of money, can't hold his boundaries and protect himself and protect others. So again, our king will go to that part of ourselves, love him to bits, love the wound that's in there, and actually ask that part of us to rest and take a bit of a holiday.
Yeah.
He'll then go to our too much warrior, and this is the part of you that works around the wound in a bit of a fuck you way. One part of us gives up and the other says, fuck you, I'm going to be the biggest warrior you've ever come across. I call him a bit of a bully because he's in your face all the time. He pushes people around. He cares only for himself. Can be a bit of a workaholic. I was in this part for a long time in my life due to childhood wounds of growing up in a war and finding as a child that nothing worked except fighting and working, really. And so I've had a whole lifetime of being in too much warrior. And whilst this can have some use in that it sure as hell helps me get the work done, if it's exaggerated, I don't put any time aside for personal connection. I don't enjoy life. I'm just doggedly working and working and working and working. So my king will come into contact with that part of me, love and thank that part for the amazing service he's given, and ask that part to cool it and calm down and take a bit of a holiday as well.
Yes.
And so my king will move energy towards my healthy warrior who does things in a good way, appropriate work, not too much, and not endlessly angry like my too much warrior is. And so accentuate my positive and get the wounded parts of me to chill out so they don't keep on jumping into the driving seat.
Yeah, and I think that's it's some work that I've been doing recently on inflated warrior. Still important to be able to set those boundaries. The boundaries are still very crucial, very important, and it's the way it's delivered. Is it from a balanced place? Is it connected with the lover and the king, and or is it just no, my way or the highway?
Yeah. So my way and the highway is the too much warrior. And my healthy warrior absolutely knows that firm and clear, strong but gentle boundaries are needed. And so he doesn't abdicate from his various duties, but he doesn't ram it down your throat, which is my too much warrior would ram his idea of how things need to be down everyone's throat. And that was too much for a lot of people. And so and in the end, too much for me because I've been in great danger of burnout, which can be the ultimate destination of too much warrior, we burn ourselves out, so we can't function anymore. So I've really had to reduce how much of my world is in his hands, and get him to cool it, and maybe support my healthy warrior at times when I really need to work. But yeah, and my too much warrior was so strong, it's taken me about 10 years to try and get that into any healthy place, and it's taken a lot of attention. But yeah, he's much more regulated now.
Yeah. Before we go to the magician, I just got a thought running at the moment that I judge that being in any inflation or deflation is it's exhausting.
Mm.
It takes so much energy from the system.
Really exhausting, and that not only are they exhausting in the characters they are, it's also exhausting trying to keep them out of sight and stop them taking over.
Yes.
And that takes an awful lot of attention. So part of the work I do, the king comes in deep relationship with these parts, so he no longer needs to keep them down. He notices and knows them inside out, sees them when he's appearing. He's made an agreement with each part. So,
Yeah.
so now with my too much warrior, it'll be too much warrior. You made an agreement with me to sit down until I called for you. So now I see you trying to come up. Please sit down. And it's as easy as that compared to what it used to be, which I'd have to force the guy down, and that would take up a lot.
And that's
So,
once you'd maybe spent a week or two of just living in that place and not even seeing it.
and not even knowing I'm in it.
No. And people around me, my experience, people around me, my partner saying, "Can you not see how angry you're being toward it? And you've been like this for a couple of weeks now. When are you going to let this go?" And I'm like, "Fuck off and leave me alone. It's you.
Yeah.
It's all you. It's not me."
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
So on to magician.
Yeah, so onto magician, I've got a healthy magician who's a, a a double guy, really, quite academic, and also so quite factual based, and likes to plan and know where everything's at and get his ducks in a row, and work out what might go wrong and what he might do there. And it's also quite, I don't know, shamanic, always seeking into the other worlds, looking for God, looking for spirit, finding out how he can bring the good of the cosmos into my life and align me with it. So yeah, a good, healthy magician. Actually, I've had to work quite a bit around healthy magician, because my planner and my organizer is often reluctant. He's always been bowled out the way by my too much warrior, who goes, fuck the planning. I want to get on with the job. Get out my way.
With a huge amount of energy.
So then I tend to have to mop things up from my too much warrior. A magician will come on later and go, well, he didn't plan this, so we need this now. So healthy magician. Too much magician can be endlessly in my mind, never stop thinking, churning things over, relentlessly overthinking everything, over planning, getting myself stuck so I can't move forward, because I'm always endlessly looking for new possibilities, making sure I've got all my dots covered and everything like that. Never stops, relentlessly in my mind. And there's also other more difficult parts of magician for me. Using the name and shadow work, I've got a very, very hefty predator, having grown up in a war. So I have a dark side of me that wants to predate on others and predate on the world. And it's taken, then, like my too much warrior, it's taken 10 odd years to regulate that part and bring it into a more healthy place. And I haven't got much of what I call safety officer, the part that tries to keep us safe. But if that's over the top, our safety officer can tie us in chains, administering us with huge amounts of fear, lots of strategies to keep safe and to stay hidden, and often stay small. And it's hugely important that our sovereign, if he wants to be free and live our life if we choose, that our sovereign regulates both of those parts of us and brings them into healthy version.
Yeah.
So that's kind of too much magician. Then too little is just being a bit stupid, never looking inside, not seeking to know myself, ignoring who I am, not understanding myself, not understanding the world, not wanting to go into any sort of academic, not using my mind, being confused and feeling a bit dumb, and believing that I'm more stupid than everyone else. Everyone else is clever, but I'm a bit of a fool.
Yeah.
So that's
And
my
wanting to tune out from life, just
yeah.
disconnect from everything, you know, switching on the TV, using the phone, spending hours and hours in bed.
Yeah, being a product of my environment rather than thinking things through and making myself. I just accept what everything. So I'll end up sitting there watching stupid Simpsons or something
Yeah.
absolutely dumbing, and I'll dumb myself down and separate myself from life. Very much
Mm,
so.
mm. And I see that imbalances in the magician have a direct relationship with imbalances in the lover. So, you know, if someone's up in their head all the time, an inflated magician, they can't be in a balanced lover place because they're not in the body in any way.
Yeah, that's completely right. And actually, what I've discovered is that all these archetypes have an effect on each other.
Yeah,
So, you know, the effect of my low magician is my warrior steams ahead, and things I do don't have longevity because they're not planned and they're not
yeah,
worked out beforehand. Lover, if I've got way too much magician, I'll have low lover, because magician thinking everything through doesn't believe in emotions, doesn't believe in connection. It's all too unsafe and too messy, so you'll stay away from there.
yeah,
And too much magician will probably not allow my sovereign to get on the throne because he's so busy controlling my whole world in his mentality that sovereign won't get a look in.
yeah,
So yeah, I've found all the archetypes affect each other, and if one is out of balance, it'll have a strong effect on bringing others out of balance as well.
yeah, yeah. So when was it in your journey that you realized the importance of sovereign work?
I think when I started working with sovereign, um, uh, it's been a long dig. There's a real difficulty with sovereign, as in the sovereign's path is not really available. And my take on that is because it's quite a new thing for men to have space and time in their midlife onwards to really consider what their sovereign path will be. For
Mm,
me, the hero's journey has been the main journey for mankind. And there's also some alienation around sovereign because if we look back in history, most of the sovereigns have been tyrants.
yeah,
So there's this, well, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be a tyrant. So I might shy away from my sovereign. And what I didn't realize is that sovereign has a job to do. I thought, okay, well, I'll just get into my sovereign and I'll be the man, I'll be the king, I'll be, you know, I'll have everyone will see me and I'll be full of joy and I'll make this amazing world. And that's not the job of my sovereign at all. Uh, our sovereign, in my understanding, forms himself by getting to know the different archetypes that are going in and stepping up and regulating them, saying, look,
yeah,
this is my world. I am the sovereign of this world. And uh, uh, if you want to come on board and have the best in my world and be at the center of my heart and the center of my world, you need to accommodate and hear what I'm saying and agree to my ask. It's
yeah,
all voluntary, the work I do with the other parts, but it's essential. And every relationship that sovereign builds with another part builds the sovereign as well, because
yeah,
he's the one that holds and then regulates and determines our world. And the other part is my long-term mission has always been I create a world of love by encouraging men to maturity and protecting our earth. And I've been trying to do that bit forever, but I haven't been concentrating on I create a world of love.
Yeah.
And the big move for my sovereign is concentrating on that first bit. I create a world of love, because whilst our lover is huge around interpersonal love, our sovereign is huge around love for everything and
Yes.
everyone and the world and all of myself.
Yes.
So once I've started to really concentrating on loving myself and my world, my sovereign has come far more into being and into action. And yeah, undergoing processes where my sovereign is in direct contact with the other parts of myself has led me to understand and work with and embody and personify my sovereign.
Mm.
The way I work is I see the sovereign is in training until he has got in touch with all these various parts of himself. And then once the sovereign has been through that journey, on the workshops, on the retreats I run, we coronate the sovereign. We coronate him using the same process that Queen Elizabeth II used, that the kings and queens of this country have used since the beginning of wherever. I've taken out the religious element and kept in the spiritual and kept in the process. And I've been coronated, and the men I work with who've been through the whole of the sovereign's journey have all been coronated as well. And something really changes then, because the energy of the king moves in, and I live from my king once I've been coronated and crowned, essentially. And then a really big change takes place, and I'm able to live from my king, and he grows and grows and grows inside me.
When I take my clients on the journey of discovering all of their different parts, you know, the inflation and the deflation in each of the quarters, I sometimes say, so your life is like you've been driving a bus, but the balanced sovereign is sitting out on the back seat and just saying, anybody else want to drive? And they're just taking it turns to take over in all of their imbalances. It's when are you going to choose to sit back down in that driving seat and decide that you're going to hold all of this?
That's exactly right. And so the sovereign for me becomes both and. I'm in a situation where I need some warrior, and so my sovereign says to my warrior, okay, I need you to do this now. But the sovereign stays around while my warrior does his work. So he steps into the driving seat, but he has his sovereign there at his right hand, and sovereign will support him to do it. Before, I used to fall into a part and by sovereign, there'd be no sovereign there whatsoever. Now my sovereign stays about, and even if the other parts of me take the driving seat for a while, he's still there.
I'm sitting here wondering if there might be someone listening to this thinking, so are you guys mad? Like, you're talking about having multiple parts of yourself inside yourself and them talking to each other to make an agreement. But for me, it's absolutely key as like a structure and a framework to be able to work with, rather than just doing an action or a behavior and then afterwards going, oh yeah, that's not how I want to be, and then putting my head down, going unconscious, and then it just happening again.
Well, it is decidedly odd, in all honesty, to divide us up into I work with about 21 archetypes, and it is really odd to divide me up into 21 archetypes and say, oh, look, you're in that one, you're in that one. But if I don't do that, I've just got the great mass of Hugh, and he does this sometimes, or he does this sometimes. I can't work out what's going on inside and what the different parts of me are up to. So I find it very useful to really hone down on who I am by looking at these different parts. But I have found some men struggle with it, particularly men who are really struggling to hold themselves together. And they go, what? You want me to divide myself? I've already got voices talking in my head, which I'm trying to cope with. And now you want to add in a whole load more. So yeah, I know some men do struggle with it, but it's an incredibly useful way of knowing ourselves. And I haven't found any other way which is quite as on the nail as this is.
No, no, I agree. I agree. And to touch on something that you said about like the message or the driving force in that part, I've had some such beautiful moments of my own processes and supporting processes of others where the message comes out of that part, and then there's shock. It's like, really? That was driving that? I didn't even know I was carrying that message. It was so lodged in the unconscious.
Yeah,
And when the message becomes clear of the driving force, for me, that's, it's just a starting place to pick it apart, to start to take back that control.
that's right. And there's sanity in this because we've all got all these parts. Archetypes are average ways that human beings have behaved since the beginning of time, and we've all got them.
Yeah.
And I have never really found a man who hasn't been able to dig out all of these archetypal parts because they are in us. So
Yes.
so whilst being a little odd, it's actually a hugely sensible way of getting to know ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And whilst Carl Jung, I believe, was the first human that put real names around these archetypes. They've been around for thousands of years, haven't they? From
Yeah.
stories of old. I mean, they've always been there.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, absolutely. There's even writing. I've seen the Vikings. They had berserkers who were like mental warriors, but there's writings that say, but they were hopeless when battle's over and you come back to the community and they couldn't relate to everyone and they're really moody and angry and so
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, and we see that post-war as well. People come back from war. They've been stuck in that mode, in that
yeah,
mindset. They come
yeah,
back into the normal world,
yeah.
and they can't function. They can't get back to the modality, the way that they were before.
That's right, because they've had to over exaggerate into too much warrior to survive,
Mm.
and they come back in too much warrior, and they're not given any help to heal and even themselves out into their full human spectrum. They're stuck in one narrow band of it. Yeah, yeah. So these are long-term human challenges and difficulties, really.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
when we,
aren't we lucky
sorry,
to
say
have
again.
this time? Aren't we lucky to have time now? Humankind has generally worked, men have generally worked their asses off and died in their early 40s for 99% of our time on this earth. And now we've got this amazing situation where we grow into old age. And so we can really, really seek to know who we are and why we're here.
Yeah, yeah. Makes me think. So my passion is to get this work out there, to get everybody to understand the importance of this work. And when you said that, I'm thinking, so how can we get this message to people younger and younger? I wish it was in school, Hugh.
Yeah, I wish it was in school. I wish it was in universities. From what I hear, young men are really struggling in universities, where they are struggling to hold themselves together. I mean, I've been working in Band of Brothers for years, where we bring this work to very, very troubled young men between 18 and 26, and it's extraordinary. It's they are so lucky to have this. I mean, they're so lucky to have this sort of work at a young age. I don't know about you, but I didn't even, my NWTA, I was 33 or 34. And before that, I'd spent the whole of my life just trying to keep parts of me that were difficult out of sight and no work whatsoever. So yeah, if this could get out amongst the general population, then it'll have a huge effect on the world.
Yeah,
It's had a huge effect on me and you.
yeah. Yeah, and last time we spoke, you were telling me about your drive and ambition to do that. So you've just completed a book, haven't you?
Yeah, I've written a book called The Sovereign's Journey, where I present the path available with the sovereign in a very detailed way. I've come across a lot of books which say you need to know yourself and who you are, but they don't show you how to do that. And my book shows men exactly how to know themselves and link up with our eternal essence and convert ourselves to joy and healing and take up our later effort of serving the world. And so yeah, I've just about finished writing, so I'm now about to get it out there. However, I do that.
Okay. Okay. Well, when that happens, then the link will be in the comments below so that everybody can go and find that.
Thanks. Thank you.
So what led you to write the book?
Oh, 15 years of trying to find my king.
Mm,
Yeah. 15 years of there just wasn't anything really there as to how to do it. And I believe that we're in a very difficult place in the world, and I believe that men have lost their way. I also believe that the traditional way of for men to be is, which is called patriarchy, I actually see that as being mostly in tyrant.
mhm.
So there's little out there for us men to heal, to be happy and joyful, to be abundant, and to bring that healing to the wider world. So I'm trying to provide a pathway that, and it's a pathway for the working man. It's not a pathway for the man who's spends, all his time in retreats and yoga. It's a pathway for men who are under pressure, working hard to provide for our families and children and to do well in the world, and who don't have a lot of time for this stuff.
Mm,
So it's kind of, it's not so much embracey, but it's sharp and to the point. And it's
mm,
for men who don't have a lot of time to get themselves together, deepen into their soul and spirit and their divine purpose, and bring themselves to happiness and abundance. And I believe that the whole thing's in that book, the whole pathway is in the book. Um, well, the self-knowing pathway. The rest of the work needs to be done on retreat, because it's deep and deeply intimate work that needs to be held well.
yes.
So I run a series of retreats that follow on from the book. But I wish to help men become a vast resource for the world, which I think we can be if we can get out of our old way of thinking and being, which is,
Mm,
I don't believe, is really working for the world or
no.
for us, leaves us beggared, and it's left me numb. It's been a long pathway out of numbness to love,
Yeah.
and I think our world will change a lot if men can find their pathway to their true king.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to touch on something that you said about reading the book, but then you have to go and do the work. Um, and that's my experience too. The experiential process for me of finding those parts of myself, finding the stories that are in there, and then,
Mm,
as you said, making new agreements with my king,
mm,
changing the story, changing the dynamic. That
mm.
cannot be done from reading a book or watching a podcast, as much as I would love it to be
Yeah,
possible.
that's right. I completely agree with that. So that work needs to be done off on the side in retreat, for me, deep in nature and in sacred space.
Mm,
And the other part of that is I need to do that with other men.
yeah,
I find that I learn and informed a lot by working with other men, seeing their sovereigns, seeing their lovers, warriors, and magicians, seeing how they work to bring their king to their central stage. And that's a big part of the development for me. And I could never have grown the way I have if I hadn't done this work with other men.
yeah.
Mm.
Have you done any work with women?
uh, well, I I actually I'm the male staff lead for Celebration of Being,
Hmm.
which a lot of men go to for Noble Man and
Yep.
various other workshops. And so I work there with women, and what I've learned is that the women's sovereign journey is very different to the men's.
Right.
And whilst I've worked with women on in the workshops I run at festivals and things like that, for me, if I was to say that I know the feminine sovereign's journey, I think that would be arrogant. And my judgment is there's been enough men saying they know what the woman's journey is and how women need to do their stuff. And
Yeah.
so I leave that to women. And there's plenty of places out there for women to go, like Celebration of Being, where they can do this work.
Yeah.
Um, and if I was ever, I do a bit of work with my partner Debbie, who runs one of the women running Celebration of Being, but I would never do work with women on my own. I'd only do it with another woman there,
Right.
because I feel that's necessary.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to get that clarity because you've said a number of times on the work that you've done with men. So I just wanted to check in with you if you'd also done this work with women, because I judge that the archetypal structure is very similar. It's not exactly the same, but there's huge similarities.
There's huge similarities. Women, like men, have these archetypal parts inside of them, and I'm sure this work and my experiences where I have worked with women, it's just as useful to women as it is to men. But I just don't want to step in and tell women how they should be work with women in a masculine way.
Mm.
Yeah,
Clear.
because the way I have brought forward is a masculine way, and I've worked with men forever, really, 25 plus years, and it's quite a male way of doing it.
Mm. Yeah.
Have you been
Yeah.
on Noble Man?
No, I haven't. I haven't yet. When I was friends of mine talked about it, talked about how amazing it was. They talked about their mother wound, and at the time, I judged that I didn't have that wasn't my big passion, my big direction, and so I chose that I would focus my efforts in other places that I judged needed more attention. But yeah, it's still very appealing to me, and I'm sure I'll go one day.
Well, that was part of it for me, but it wasn't really the big part. The big part for me was bringing my own feminine alive. And I
Right.
see that as part of the sovereign journey as well, turning to the more feminine qualities inside me, which I mean, my childhood was like, you don't be anything like feminine, no matter what. And so those parts of me were not in the light at all. So working Noble Man was much more about bringing the gentler, more loving parts of me aside, and that's been absolutely essential to my King's growth, and I don't know where I would have been without it. So it's much more about rounding off my character, and I've got a pretty solid mother wound as well, so it's working with that too. But it's much more about rounding off my character.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to look into it more. I'm sure I'll get a lot out of it.
It was as important to me as my NWTA.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a huge statement because my NWTA was life changing.
Me too.
So,
yeah, and I've never had those are the two strongest weekend retreats I've ever been on my life. Noble
right.
Man and NWTA, yeah, and I've done a lot.
Got the T-shirt, and you've now written the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's next for you once you finish this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. Wow, what's next for me? Getting this work out into the world, really. I'm going to be doing that for a long time. I'm lucky I'm not yet 60, so I have some good working years work available to me. And yeah, I mean there's also the other part of my mission and vision, which I haven't done enough on, and that's working for the earth and the animals. So whilst I have been doing that in West Africa, I wish to do that more in Southern Africa as well. So getting this work out here and leaning in a lot more to try and support and protect the earth and the animals, which has always been a huge passion. And I haven't had time to do enough of that. So I'll be putting my attention much more in that direction as well.
Yeah, and before the podcast, when we were checking in, you were saying about how you now feel like you've gone into a different mode of working from a balanced sovereign place rather than that warrior place of got to get it done, got to get it done. And so yeah, I'm imagining that maybe you're going to have more energy and flow to be able to move between the different parts and work with all the parts that are important.
Yeah, and the fact that I'm not in my too much worry and working endlessly, I have a lot more time and ability to go for to balance out the different parts of my effort for the world. One
Mm,
working for men and the other working for the planet. So
mm,
yeah, hopefully much more balanced in future.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, it's really lovely to talk to you to you today, Hugh. Thank you very much, and I hope that this lands well for someone out there and helps them on their journey in some way.
Mm. Thanks, Ashley. I love what you're doing. I really do. What you're doing is making available for men what men really need. So thank you. I appreciate it. And on behalf of the men who might watch this, thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank
I
you.
really love
That
your
really
efforts.
touches me.
Mm,
Yeah, I have a huge passion for this work. It was absolutely life changing for me, and now I've done a lot of work, and I've still got work to do. But it's been an absolute game changer. My life experience is completely different. It's like I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago, and
mm,
for the better in so many ways. And yeah, I love to be able to try and find ways to be able to encourage others to go on that journey.
mm. And I feel very lucky to have witnessed you on a lot of your journey and see you grow and see you coming to the light. Yeah, and see you taking your place in the world. So
Yeah,
yeah, thanks for everything.
yeah, thank you, thank you. So yeah, maybe we'll sit back down and do this again, Hugh.
Lovely. Lots of love,
Okay,
hey?
yeah,
Okay,
take care, man.
bye then. Bye.